Welcome back, and today we're going to look at texture. Now, texture usually is talking about the way something feels. So when we look at texture, we're looking at things like rough or smooth or silky, fuzzy, prickly, all things that you can use to describe when you touch something. Now when you touch it, when you can put your hand on a thing like this board, it's smooth, okay? Or if I went outside and rubbed it across the concrete, that would be rough, and we call that actual texture. When you can actually touch it, it has actual texture. But when we draw something or paint, that has visual texture, where we have to imply that the texture's there, because we're drawing on something that's flat and smooth. And when we use a paint, pencil, charcoal, pastels, any medium, a lot of times is going to still be smooth on the paper or whatever surface you created it on. Now, if you're doing sculpture or a collage or some other form where you're putting other media on top of something, that can also have actual texture as well as implied texture. But for right now, I'm going to focus on the implied texture. Start with something simple, like a circle. Now, we haven't talked a whole lot about shading, but maybe I want to give that circle something to sit on instead of just floating there in the air. Now, I could draw just a flat line. Now, when you draw just a line, that has a hard line and it creates a surface, but it's also smooth because there's nothing protruding from it. I can imagine running my finger across the top of this line and nothing's really going to pop out at me. But if instead of doing a line, I start to create some jagged little edges, maybe now it looks like my ball is resting in some grass. Grass has a different texture to it. Maybe the ball has texture. So you can do that with dots. Now maybe if you had a lot of dots, you could even make this look like a golf ball. If you've ever held a golf ball, it has texture. It has those little dimples in it. Same thing, when you start to add dots, those dots are implied texture. We see shading where there's a hole there that has created a shadow. Maybe you want to use lines. And if you do those lines over and over and over again, now it's looking kind of prickly or fuzzy. And if you happen to live somewhere that has sweet gum trees, they're usually those little round spiky balls that fall out of trees. So you can have something that's prickly or fuzzy, like a peach, which sometimes if we were to draw our hair and you have little short hairs, if you've got a shaved head, that has different texture. So those are just a couple ways to create texture. You can use dots, you can use lines, and then depending on the line that you use, so those were all short. Maybe I did some long wavy lines. It's starting to look like the ball that I drew now has a mullet and it's like a weird beard. So the longer wavy lines imply that it's smoother. The shorter choppy lines start to create an idea that something's rough. So those are some ideas of ways that you can play with texture.